The cold wind howled through the empty train station that night. Passengers hurried past, clutching their coats, avoiding eye contact with the frail beggar sitting by the cracked pillar. Her hair was messy, her clothes torn, and her trembling hands reached out for spare change. But when Daniel walked closer, his breath caught in his throat. The light from the flickering street lamp fell across her face, and he froze. This wasn't just any beggar. This was Emma, the woman who had once laughed at his proposal and walked out of his life without a second glance. Why is she here like this? Daniel whispered to himself, his heart pounding. Before we dive into this unbelievable twist of fate, make sure you like this video and subscribe to Kindness Stories, because what you're about to hear will remind you that life can turn tables in the most unexpected ways. The station was nearly empty that evening, except for the occasional rumble of trains and the sound of hurried footsteps echoing across the cold tiles. Daniel had been there to pick up a late delivery for work, his mind occupied with numbers, meetings, and deadlines. But everything stopped when he saw her. Emma. The same Emma who, 7 years ago, had looked him in the eye and told him she could never marry a man without a future. Back then, her words had cut deeper than she could have known. Daniel was a struggling young man, working 2 jobs just to support his sick mother. He had nothing to offer except his loyalty, his love, and his dreams. But Emma had chosen a different path, a wealthier man, a faster life. Now, she was sitting on the cold cement floor, her knees drawn up, her hands trembling as she held out a small paper cup. Her eyes were sunken, her lips cracked from the cold. She didn't see him at first. She was looking down, as if afraid to meet anyone's gaze. Daniel stood frozen, his breath visible in the frigid air. For a moment, memories flashed before his eyes, the way she used to smile when she talked about her dreams, the sound of her laughter when they used to sit on park benches eating cheap ice cream. But this wasn't the girl he remembered. He took a step closer, the crunch of gravel under his shoe making her flinch. Slowly, she lifted her head, and when her eyes met his, they widened. Shock. Recognition. And then shame. She quickly looked away, as if hoping the ground would swallow her. Daniel's heart ached. He wanted to ask 1,000 questions. What happened to you? Where's your husband? Why are you here? But his voice wouldn't come. Finally, he spoke, his voice quiet. Emma? She didn't answer. Her lips trembled as she tried to hide her face with her scarf. But Daniel had already seen the truth written in her eyes. This wasn't temporary. She wasn't just having a bad day. She had fallen hard, and no one had caught her. Do you remember me? He asked. Her voice was barely a whisper. Yes. That single word carried the weight of all the years between them. She didn't ask how he was, and he didn't tell her about the business he had built from scratch or the comfortable life he now had. Instead, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out his wallet. But before he could hand her any money, she shook her head. I don't want your pity. It's not pity, Daniel said, his voice steady. It's help. Emma looked away, her eyes glistening. Help is for people who can be saved. Those words hit Daniel like a punch to the chest. This was not the confident, sharp-tongued woman who once turned him down without hesitation. This was someone broken. He glanced around the station, people were walking by, pretending not to see her, as if ignoring her existence made them better. He couldn't stand it. Come on, he said finally, holding out his hand. Let's get you something warm to eat. She hesitated, eyeing his hand as if it were a lifeline she didn't feel worthy to take. Then, slowly, she placed her cold, fragile fingers in his. The contact sent a wave of emotions through him, anger at whoever had left her like this, sadness for what she'd become, and a deep, unexplainable compassion. He led her to a small cafe across the street from the station. The warm air inside made her sigh softly, as if she hadn't felt heat in days. They sat in a corner booth, and Daniel ordered soup, bread, and hot tea. For a while, they didn't speak. Emma stared at the steam rising from the cup, her hands wrapped tightly around it. Finally, Daniel broke the silence. "What happened, Emma?" She gave a hollow laugh. "Life happened." He waited, knowing she needed to tell it in her own time. After a long pause, she began. "After I left, I married Michael. He was charming, wealthy, everything I thought I wanted. For a while, it was good. We traveled, went to parties. I thought I'd made the right choice." Her voice cracked. "But money doesn't protect you from cruelty. He changed. Or maybe he was always that way, and I just didn't see it." The drinking started, then the insults, and then the hitting. Daniel's jaw tightened. He wanted to interrupt, to tell her she should have left, but he stayed silent. "One night, I finally ran. I thought I could start over, but I had nothing. No savings, no friends left. I worked odd jobs, but when I got sick, I lost it all. The streets became my home." She looked down, shame filling her voice. "And that's where I've been." Daniel sat back, his chest heavy. The girl who once walked away because he wasn't enough had been brought to her knees by the very life she chose instead. And yet, instead of feeling vindicated, all he felt was pain for her. "You didn't deserve that," he said softly. She smiled faintly, bitterly. "Maybe I did. I was selfish, Daniel. I hurt you. I thought I was too good for the life you offered." He shook his head. "No one deserves to be abandoned when they're at their weakest." For a moment, they just sat there in silence, the hum of the cafe filling the air. Then Daniel leaned forward. "You don't have to stay out there. Let me help you get back on your feet." Her eyes filled with tears. "Why would you do that? After everything?" Daniel looked at her, his voice steady but full of feeling. "Because I know what it's like to have no one. And because I can't walk away from you again." Emma blinked, stunned. She opened her mouth to speak but closed it again. For the first time that night, a small flicker of hope crossed her face. As they left the cafe, Daniel wrapped his scarf around her shoulders. The snow had begun to fall outside, dusting the world in white. But for the first time in years, Emma didn't feel completely cold. She didn't know what the future held, but at least for tonight, she wasn't alone. The next morning, Daniel brought Emma to a small apartment he kept for guests. She looked around in disbelief, her eyes scanning the neatly made bed, the fresh towels, the warm heater humming softly. This is too much," she whispered. "It's not," Daniel said gently. "You deserve a chance to start over." Over the next weeks, he helped her get new clothes, a part-time job at his company, and regular meals. At first, Emma kept her distance, still battling the shame of her past. But slowly, her shoulders straightened, her eyes regained a spark, and she began to smile again. One evening, as they sat watching the trains pass, Emma turned to him. "You could have walked away, Daniel. Why didn't you?" He met her gaze. "Because sometimes, the person who once hurt you is the one who needs you most. And I didn't want revenge. I wanted to give you what I wished someone had given me when I was lost, grace." Tears slipped down Emma's cheeks. She reached for his hand, holding it tightly. For the first time in years, she felt safe. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Kindness Stories, because every share, every view, and every subscriber helps us spread kindness even further.